because it's going to be sitting beta. That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's 10:30. The next session's 11.
I said I heard develop web because it's going to be a sitting beta. That's what I heard.
Well, I don't know. You the same presentation.
They do have a business card.
He said the web will catch up in 3 to 4 years.
You experience a lose the response presentation.
Can we quiet down? We're going to get started.
They'll catch up in 3 to 4 years.
Everybody, we're going to get started.
All right.
All right, thanks for coming. I just drove down from Austin. Glad to be here today. I did this talk at the Austin Innotech a couple months ago. I know it pretty well. I'm also going to be at the Beta Summit later on today. My name is Josh Baer, and I have a startup called Other Inbox. That's my day job. We help make people's Gmail and Yahoo Mail emails better. It doesn't really have anything to do with an iPad. But here, I've been an early adopter of the iPad, and I'm going to share some of my thoughts about it. I don't have any secrets about like iPad development. I didn't help create it or anything like that. I just use it a lot. I think it's pretty cool, and I can share with you some of the things I've learned about it, and then hopefully open it up to some discussion and questions that you have. So that was my old computer. It was a MacBook Air. It was pretty great. If you're gonna have a laptop, I think it's awesome. It's really, really lightweight, easy to use. But it's dead now. I don't have one anymore. I got rid of it. I don't actually own a single laptop. I don't have an external monitor in my house anymore either. That was a big transition. I never thought that would go away. But don't have a laptop anymore. And all I use is a desktop and my iPad. And I use my iPad really that's my go-to device. Like if I try to go do things there first, and then sometimes there's some things that's not best for, and I go switch to my desktop and do something else. But it's usually the thing that I want to use and the thing that's right in front of me. It's a really simple device, but I still have a great desktop computer near me all the time. So I'm not trying to say like it completely replaces all the computers you would ever need. But for me, it replaces my laptop, and it replaces a lot of the computing stuff I need. And I think over time, it's gonna replace a lot more. But at home, I've got a really great desktop set up. So if I'm frustrated with something, or if I want to type a long thing, or you open a big spreadsheet, then I go to my computer. And if I work, same thing. I've got a computer at my desk, and I can go use that. But most of the time, again, this is what's in front of me. And if I'm walking to a meeting, or if I'm coming to a conference, or even if I'm going on a trip for a couple days, I just take that one with me, and that's all that I have, and it does everything I need to do. And I'm not like a light computer. I have a computer science degree. I build a lot of stuff. I'm a very early adopter. I'm trying out lots of new services and using things all the time. And while there definitely are some limitations around it, I've found it to be fully capable of doing all the things I need to do when I'm on the road or traveling or around. So, what's the big difference? How many people here have an iPad? So, like less than 10%, most of you don't. How many people have played before? Like half the people. Okay. So what are the big differences? Obviously it's smaller, and it has a big screen. It doesn't have a keyboard. I think fundamentally it's touch-based versus cursor-based, and so some things just don't translate the exact same way. It's really all about using your fingers to point at things and touch things, and that's really, really intuitive. That makes it's fun. It's actually just more fun to use, and I think in many ways that's a really important factor to keep in mind too if you want people to use things, if you want them to be productive with them. And it's just, for many things, it can be a better way to do things than this disconnect between moving your hand over here and the mouse moving around over here. The way apps work on it, it runs a different set of applications. There's a lot of them, and there's more and more every day, and generally there's the apps for most of the things you need to do, but on your desktop you're going to have a larger selection and more different types of apps, so you can run a lot more legacy ones. A big difference is due to the nature of it being all on a small one screen, it really, and due to the nature of how they implemented it, it really encouraged you to focus on one thing at a time. And that was really difficult for me at first. I'm definitely the kind of person that, at one point I had 4 monitors on my desk, and I had a million windows open, and I'm switching between one thing and the other. And sometimes, with Twitter and email and all these other things open, I'll find myself just literally just like flipping between them, not actually doing any work, just like rotating between one thing to the next, looking for the next flashing thing popping at me I need to respond to. And what I really like about this is that it actually encourages you to really actually kind of focus on one thing. And I can still switch to other things that I need to, but that I find is like a double-edged sword. It's a limitation, but it's also kind of a benefit. The battery life on it's great. It's basically like one big battery. It gets about a 10-hour battery life, which means you pretty much can just like use it all day, even much more so than you can with the laptop that has a long battery. It's like my phone most of the time. I can plug it in at night, wake up in the morning, pick it up, carry it around with me all day, not really have to think about it, know that it's going to last through all the things I need to do. In fact, a lot of times my phone battery dies, and then I switch. This will still be going, so I'll switch to it for looking something up or doing other things. And then a lot of laptops have 3G wireless built in. Mac ones don't. These do, and that's really great for just being instantly on all the time. And so combine that with the fact that this thing, turns on so fast like your phone does, and like a laptop or something that kind of has to wake up or boot up. And it's really just, again, that's why it becomes the go-to device, because it's actually faster and easier to do a lot of things on this than other places. Just as a really minor example, but just one thing, it's I have a bunch of different Twitter accounts, and if I see a tweet on TweetDeck up on my computer that I like and I want to favorite it, it's actually a lot easier for me to open my phone or my iPad and find it there and favorite it and do it on my computer. And so I find myself having my iPad near my computer a lot, and certain things will happen on work on my computer, and I'll switch over to my iPad because it's actually easier and faster to do it over there. So it doesn't have a keyboard. It's like a major, for some people that's like a really big deal and a big limitation. And I'm kind of a keyboard freak. I type in Dvorak, which is like an alternate keyboard layout. That's really, if you do, really only weirdos kind of do. But it's for somebody that went and studied the keyboard and all this other stuff and figured out this was like a better way to do it. And so I really take it pretty seriously. At South by Southwest in 2 weeks, I'm like competing in some keyboard competition. Like I love my keyboard, but at the same time, I don't miss it with this because it's just again, if I'm going to go type a novel, and I do go to my computer, I do still have a computer nearby, but I'm traveling and I'm writing emails or small notes, if I'm doing Twitter, if I'm browsing the web, all the other things I need to do, the keyboard on this works just fine. And I find I can type pretty fast with 2 or 3 fingers, just tapping out the things that I need to do. And it's a lot easier than on an iPhone or something like that. If you really want, you can use a Bluetooth keyboard. So like I do occasionally, when I first got this, I would carry a keyboard just like that I could keep in my backpack. And if I figured like maybe at night I'll be in my hotel room and I'll want to bang out some emails and I'll pull out the keyboard and I'll get serious and really type on it. And that just never happens, honestly. Like it saves my backpack. Every once in a while I can pull it out, but it's not really that worth it. I'm usually not typing stuff that's that long on the iPad. So what is it good for? And they're all good for different things, right? But iPad, it's really the idea you're going to have multiple different devices. Obviously, this isn't, for most people, this isn't going to do everything that they need to do. So you might pull out your phone, you might pull out your iPad, you might go to your desktop. Whereas a laptop really can be kind of like one device for everything. And so, there's a lot of different concerns on why you pick, different technology you might use. Budget's a really big one. So a lot of people just having one great laptop that's going to do everything they need is going to be a really important part of the decision. But if you are able to have, depending on what your needs are, if you are able to have a desktop nearby or other things, this can be a really great alternative. The iPad's really good for browsing around. It's really good for entertainment. It's good for flipping through emails and responding to quick ones, or going through deleting a lot of stuff, web browsing, and things like that. Probably not the best place for programming. Not right now, anyway. Maybe as they get into more visual programming things, which I'm sure they will. If you're like doing pixel perfect manipulation with Photoshop, probably not on an iPad, at least not right now. The working offline is probably better on an iPad, on a laptop in general. They're getting more and more options for caching stuff on the laptop in a smart way, but like the email on it by default only goes back like 200 messages or something. So like if you're stuck offline on a plane and you want to go through a bunch of old emails, this is not the thing to do that. Laptop's gonna be a lot better. But these days, a lot of the plane flights have wireless on them too, so those things kind of like becoming less of an issue. It's like it's very rare that I'm not able to connect, especially with 3G on this. The iPad's great for sharing and just talking to people. It's really the body language of this device is a lot different than a laptop. you know, if I'm sitting in a meeting and people have their laptops open, it's kind of like this wall up between you and them. And you don't know what they're doing behind their laptop, right? Like they're like sitting there typing away, and they could be like completely ignoring you and writing other emails, or maybe they're, you know, taking notes on what you're doing, or maybe they're, you know, talking on Facebook. But the iPad is like, it's this open thing. Like you have it out in front of you, and everyone can kind of, it's good and bad, again, like most of these things, but everyone can kind of see what you're doing. Maybe not exactly, but like they're going to know if you're, you know, paying attention and taking notes or doing something interesting. And then if you want to share it with somebody, you know, turning your laptop around again kind of like puts the wall between you and them, and they can see it or you can see it, or you get kind of uncomfortably close and they have bad breath or whatever it might be. But the iPad, like, you know, you can just hand it around, right? You can just show it to somebody, flip it over, stand it up. Like, it's really very much a shared device, and that's why you'll see it out. I'm sure there's a bunch of them out on the trade show floor, because it's way better on a trade show floor to have an iPad and sit there and talk to someone and point about it and do things with it than, you know, a laptop pointing at some big display or something like that. It really engages people more. It's really, and you know, along with that, a laptop's better for privacy. So, you know, if you don't want people to see what you're doing, you know, a laptop with nice privacy screens, you know, probably a better choice. Everyone's seen the iPad's really great for music and entertainment, movies and things like that. Again, just because it's fun, because it's intuitive, because the software that goes along with it is just as important as the hardware itself. The fact that it's this great big touchpad, but also the way that they've done it has made those things all really tightly integrated and really easy to use. And then I'm sure, you know, many of you probably heard there's no flash on the iPad. For some people, that's, you know, a really big deal. Well, it hasn't really been a big deal for me. There certainly are occasionally a website I'll go to that doesn't load properly, but most things do, especially by now. Almost all the video out there, that's even stuff that's encoded in Flash, when you open it on an iPad, they serve it to you some other way now. Like that all works now. So there's really very little that I hit that I can't do. So I don't find that to be a big limitation at all. But again, I'm sure there's some people where, you know, they critical Flash applications that they use that are really, really important. You know, this wouldn't work for them at all. Another interesting thing about Flash is, you know, Flash has some built-in concepts around, like there's a lot of like hover over things where, like, in order to do something in a native Flash app, you have to hover the mouse over it and then something pops up. There's no way to do that on an iPad. You can't hover over something, right? Either you click on it or you don't. And so that's part of where the metaphor is kind of different, and I think one of a few different reasons why it's not there. So I think, you know, what's here is interesting, and I'm very much like, again, I'm very much an early adopter. I totally will buy something knowing that it's not really ready yet, because I just like to play with it, picture what it's going to be like. And I do think the iPad's ready now. I think it's going to be so great a couple of years from now when we're on, you know, the version 3 of this, and they've really expanded it further. And a couple of things that I'm sure are coming that are going to really blow this out into a much more, a much wider use device. You know, right now, it's very much like your phone, very single user. So I don't really want to give you my iPad and like let you go do stuff with it. Because like as soon as I give it to you, like you can read all my email, you can see all my bookmarks, you can post to my Twitter account, you can, you know, do all these different things because you're logged into my one account, which is great when it's just me, but it doesn't really make it good for sharing or like letting my kids have one that they can play with and things like that. You know, as I think is a trend with many other things with cloud computing, I can imagine pretty easily that it won't be too long before you can walk up to anybody's iPad or anybody's iPhone and just log in and have it instantly be customized to you and have all your stuff there and be able to access all your things, and then be able to hand it to somebody else and have them log in with their info and get all their stuff. And I think that's going to make a huge difference. It's going to make it a lot easier for sharing. It's also going to make it a lot easier to have public iPads out there that you can use, like in a kiosk type room, right? Where you walk up to something and you log in and poof, you get all your stuff. And maybe there's some custom things that you can do there, but you also can access all of your information. And wouldn't it be even better that JetBlue is great, right? It's awesome having a little TV screen and you can watch TV and you can watch movies and listen to music. And imagine if that was an iPad, and right when you sat down before you took off, it synced and downloaded all your apps and your things you like to do and your games. And, that was just plopped in right there. I think we're going to see a lot more of those things in different places. And now, and I'll talk about the iPad 2 a little bit more later on, but we're just now starting to see this is like this kind of the second rev, and they're doing both the software and the hardware. And so now we're seeing them start to do things with the touch interface, where the first version was like let's just try to make sure everyone can do the same things they could do before. And so it was a very familiar metaphor. And so email still looks like email, and like web browsing still looks like web browsing. But what's going to be really great is when people now that they've got the devices and they're really familiar with them, that they can use this new way of doing things, the touch interface, to do things you couldn't do before with a keyboard and mouse, and do them in a better way. And so they just came out with, I think, GarageBand and iMovie for the iPad, which is a music editing and a video editing solution. And I really believe that if this first version doesn't do it, that by the next version, that will be a better way to edit videos than doing it on my computer with a keyboard and mouse. And it'll just be, it'll be fun, because and I really mean that, like it'll be more just enjoyable to work with, and a lot more intuitive. It's going to be easier to get things done. You're not going to have to know as much about the manual. You're not going to have to, you won't have to train yourself as many different ways, and you'll be able to produce things that are nicer and better. And in the end, I really believe that for many things, a touch interface is just better than keyboards and mice. Like, keyboards and mice have been with us for a long time, and they're probably going to be with us for a long time. But I've got a 2-year-old, and I just wonder if she's really ever going to type a lot, if she's not like a programmer or something. Like, is she going to need to learn to type, like 10, 15 years from now? I don't know. I don't know if she's really going to, because I think she's going to grow up on a lot of these types of things. And you'll see a little bit of that in just a second. So, I don't remember what that slide's for. So, this is my daughter, and this was like one of the first times she picked up an iPhone. She's older than this a little bit now. But what was amazing to me is that we never taught her anything about how to use it. We never sat down and said, hey, this is what you need to do, go do it. She just saw us doing it all the time. So first of all, she just wanted it. Because the way we got her to crawl the first time was I put the iPad like 10 feet away from her. And I was like, really, come on. She wouldn't move, put the iPad down, went right after her. But this was like really early on. She's probably only like a year and a half there. And I don't know if you guys saw that or if I can play it again. But she totally got the idea of like, I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna move things around and tap on them. And she understands the idea of the home button and bringing that back, and the idea of swiping to different screens. And she knows what the icons are for her games. And we never told her any of it. She just saw us do it a couple times and then immediately just picked it up and was able to go do it. And that's not the typical computer experience, right? That's not the way you think of like a lot of us, or and my parents and other people, as they were introduced to computers. It was a really confusing thing. They had to write everything down. I'm going to make a list of, okay, I'm going to click here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you don't have to even teach them, you just hand it to them, and they totally get it. We sat down on a JetBlue flight, and she just immediately reached up and started trying to swipe the screen. Right? She's like, this thing's broken. This TV sucks. Like, and again, there was no. I kind of like. I wondered what she was going to do. I didn't set this up, but like as soon as I whipped out my phone and like I recorded it. But she totally just immediately assumed that it's going to be a touchpad. And like I said, I think she's going to grow up assuming that. That most things she goes up to, she's going to be able to touch and do. I'm trying to remember, she did something else in our kitchen once where she started swiping the microwave or something. And so I really believe that it's just so much more intuitive and an easier experience, that we're going to see a lot more, we're going to see more and more things where that's the only way to do things, or that's an easier and actually a faster way to do things. And it makes it much more accessible. And my mother-in-law, she's in her late 70s, and she's pretty computer savvy. She's got email and does web, and she does her QuickBooks to do her her finances and stuff. But it's still a chore for her, and she doesn't want to use it. And I look at like the subset of what this does, and I think for her this does just about everything she needs to do. Like we haven't gotten one just yet, but I think this could almost completely replace your computer. But the only thing is maybe like the QuickBooks stuff, which you probably shouldn't be doing anyway. It's like, I think, what she needs to do is check her email. She wants to look on Facebook. She wants to share photos. She wants to, do things, all of that. This is a better device for it, easier. And she doesn't have to, it's not going to break. It's not going to get a virus. She can just pick it up and it's always ready to use. And I think for a lot of people, it will become the main device. They may be able to get it without a computer. This one video, what's this? This is just a little bit longer. And I think here I told her I told her to go launch her game. Like, I hadn't really, usually we'd launch at 4, and I wanted to see what she could do on her own. So I gave her the iPad, told her to launch it. And you can see she went to the wrong place, and she realized she wasn't where she was supposed to be. So she hit the home button to go, I'm not telling her what to do, to go back. And then she was able to swipe and get to the screen and find her bubbles game, you know, where she can pop little bubbles on the iPad thing. And she knows, I want to play a different game, I'm going to hit the home button, I'm going to go launch this other one. And then this one, it like pops up some screen, you have to like say, like, you know, do you want to do shareware or not, right? And she pressed the wrong button, it took her to the shareware thing. So she goes back to the home button again. And then she's gonna, you know, click the same app, because that was the one she wanted to play. And you know, she can't read any of that, but she knows what a button looks like, and she knows she hit the wrong one last time. So you know, she hit the right button, and now she's got a little thing going. Maybe we'll see. She gets it, never gets it going. Yeah. So there's another thing where she can draw little swirlies on the iPad. But it's just, what amazed me was just that, like, I never explained anything to her. I never say, like, you know, this is how it works, or go do this. Like, she just immediately picked it up. And I think, and this is like the version 1 crappy one. Like, you know, like, imagine what this is going to be like 5 years from now. It's going to be so much more intuitive and so much better. Another kind of version 1 crappy one. So I've got this watch that I'm wearing. It's called the TikTok. And it's kind of a big, ugly watch. And it's got, the screen doesn't even come on unless you press a button. And then I got a little you know, clock. It's not very functional. It doesn't do very many things. But it also, I can swipe it, and it's an iPad. It's an iPod. And it plays music, and I can pop it out. It's actually just an iPod Nano popped into my watch. And it's got the same little touchpad screen on it, and it runs the same operating system that your phone and this does. You can tell it looks like the same. I'm showing you a picture for the screen, but it's got the same little apps on it. They look the same. They have the same icons. You can't write your own programs for this, but I'm sure it's the same APIs. It's the same code. They just have to open. You know, it's not opened up yet, but you will be able to write your own little apps for this. And like right now, this isn't on the internet, but it will be there, right? And then I can totally imagine that it'll be at this point where, you know, someone text messages me, or they send me a Facebook message or something. Instead of my phone buzzing, me having to dig my phone out of my pocket, I just look down at my watch, and I see a little message there, and then I can respond. Maybe I can respond on a watch. Maybe I can pull out my phone if I want to. But it's the same thing. It's that same screen. It's that same touch interface. It's going to be big. It's going to be on the backs of the seats, and it's going to be in your living room, and it's going to be in your kitchen, and it's going to be small. It's going to be, you know, in other places that maybe you didn't think about. And it's going to work the same way. It's going to be really intuitive, and you're going to be able to look at it, and make things happen. So almost the end of the talk part here. It's not a very long talk, but last time we did this, there was a lot of people that had questions, a lot of interesting things to talk about. So hopefully we'll do that same thing here. But they just announced the iPad 2, and I think it's out on next Friday, the 11th. You can go get it. It's a little bit thinner. It's a little bit faster. It's got a camera in it, so you can do video conferencing and things like that. But I don't think it really fundamentally changes anything. I think, you know, and it's a great opportunity to go buy the old iPads for cheap. So a bunch of people will be, you know, upgrading those, and these ones are still great. So, so I'm sure I'll be getting one. You know, my family has the typical kind of hand-me-down thing where I go buy the brand new one, and then my wife takes mine, and then the next one we get, give to our kids or sell it to somebody or something else. And I'm sure we do the same shuffle with that. But I would be totally happy to just get a regular iPad if you haven't tried one yet. Like I said, I think that would be a really good chance to get it at a good price. So I made this whole presentation on my iPad. I didn't use a computer to do it. Only took about an hour. I did most of it on a plane. I downloaded some of the pictures. I found some of the pictures browsing on the iPad and saved them to the local photo gallery. And then there's a Keynote is the Mac PowerPoint, and that, you know, just like that on the desktop too, and then a version of that for the iPad. And it was super easy to go create this and put the pictures in that I wanted. And then I had the video from my phone, and I could transfer that to the iPad and actually drop it right into the video from on here. I'm not saying like everybody would find that really easy to do, but it wasn't really hard, and it's totally possible. So you can make a real presentation and do real things. I can go on the road, and I can, you know, change my PowerPoint and then, you know, do all those things and do it right from the iPad. So that's basically the prepared talk, and we've got technically about another half hour. We definitely can end early if we run out of questions, but really just wanted to open up to you guys, and if anyone has any questions or you want to talk about it, we can do that.
Josh, you've been using the term iPad throughout this talk. How much of what you're saying is do you think is more broadly applicable to tablets in general?
You know, in a vague kind of way, it's broadly applicable to tablets, but all the other tablets totally suck. So like you wouldn't be able to do any of those things there, you know, like you wouldn't find it easy, and you wouldn't. So maybe someday they will be, but they totally suck. And it's like, and it's easy to get confused because you look at like a feature list, and the other ones will have more checkboxes, but it's not about checkboxes, and it's about how the whole thing works together. And I don't think anyone's even close to Apple on how the whole thing works together. Anybody else?
So, how long do you think it would take for your tablets to catch up to
You know, I'm not an expert at that, so I can guess like anybody else could. If anybody else does any thoughts, then they can say so too. You know, I think it's years, like definitely years. It's not next year. You know, it's like maybe 3 or 5 years from now, or maybe there are ways that some of the things they're doing here become more standardized, so that you know other people can adopt them too.
My employees want, okay, an iPad. And I guess I just wanted, can you give us any insight about the work productivity? We are very much a Windows-based company. Everything we do is, Microsoft Office. And so how is this going to really help them more than a laptop?
Right. Well, they'll like it, so they'll work more.
Okay.
Is it? I mean, it's true. It's like they're gonna have fun. They will actually go do more stuff. But I mean, it's pretty Windows friendly. Like they can connect to Outlook to Exchange, and you can check your Exchange email on there. It can open and view Office documents. It's probably not a great content creation device for Office documents. You're probably not going to be editing a big spreadsheet, but if you needed to open one and look at something, you can really easily. So again, I think in that scenario, it probably won't completely replace their other stuff, but I think they'll really like it, and they'll see it as a big benefit. They'll enjoy their job more, and very likely do. I'm a big fan of kind of creating an environment where people want to be and want to work and enjoy what they do, and I think that's how you attract really great people, and that's how you get them to do really great things. And I think this kind of fits into that. It's like make sure my programmers, they all want really big screens, like important part of my hiring program.
I have a question. I haven't played with the iPad a ton, but I know with my iPhone it's initialized and synced to my computer specifically. Does the iPad sync with a particular computer, and do you know if they're going to change that? Because I think, for a lot of us, if it becomes so useful, then to be able to sync it with one computer at home, which, at home is Mac and at work is PC, the capability on doing that, if that's...
Yeah, so right now it works exactly the same way. It syncs the same way, it looks the same thing. You see it in iTunes, you do the same kind of sync stuff, and that kind of sucks. Like that's one of the things that is a major limitation of I think the whole iOS platform right now. It's not a big enough one that nobody will use it. Like everybody still puts up with it, but they really, I'm sure they know they need to move away from that. We really need to get to a point where everything's syncing real time to the cloud. I can't imagine that's that far away.
That's really close, Josh. The cloud syncing for your devices is really very close. I'm surprised it wasn't announced yesterday. So I don't have inside information, but there's just nothing keeping the whole ad from becoming the window into your source wherever it is.
Yeah.
Whether it's mobile media or Google Docs or what have you. That stuff is all so close that this becomes really a neutral device.
Yeah. And then we were talking about your core Apple stuff, which is like your transferring your music over and maybe some other things that you do there. There's a bunch of applications I use on this now that for me make it so I don't have to think about that at all. So some really key ones, and I didn't focus on as much because a lot of you didn't have iPads, but just as an example, there's an app called Dropbox that works on your computer and on your iPad and your phone. Basically gives you kind of a shared hard drive in the cloud. They'll sync between all these different places. Rackspace has one called Jungle Disk. It's also a good one for your computer, but the difference with Dropbox is that they have a really great mobile interface. And so from my, even though I don't have all my files on my iPad, I can open it up, and as long as I have a network connection, which I pretty much always do because it's 3G, I can browse all my files on my computer. I can open up any one. I can go get a presentation that I left over there, and then it opens up in Keynote, and then I can give the presentation right here. Things like that. There's another app called Evernote, which is a kind of a note-taking application, but also it's just a great sync model where, again, if I'm on my computer, on my iPhone, or on my iPad, I can instantly get to all the notes I've taken or lists I've made or other things. And those are synced across all everywhere that I might be. So those are two for me that I find super, super helpful, and in essence make it so I don't have to think about it much. And everyone, I have to remember every once in a while, like, oh yeah, I got to go plug my iPad in to like sync my contacts, make sure that the new contacts I entered on my computer, make it over here. But it's usually these kind of little ancillary things now, not the core things like my files. Emails already kind of naturally synced, so it's like the things I really need a lot. My calendar's synced. Those things also work. Other questions? Is there over here?
Do you use it to do online baking? So how do you protect your password going out on the 3G network?
I do occasionally use it for online banking. The main thing, you're just like on anything. I don't think there's any more risk in the 3G network than the internet. So I would want to make sure it's protected in both places. If I'm using a web page to go check my bank, it's going to be encrypted and and SSL, so HTTPS, to make sure that no one can see anything. And I want to be aware of like cookies and things like that. And you want to do the same thing here. I think there's specific apps for all my major online banking type things. So there's a Chase app and there's an American Express app. And I know that those things also communicate securely themselves. So I don't want to say you shouldn't be concerned about it, because you should, but I'm not concerned about it because like all the things that I do are secure and take care of that.
So Josh, you brought up a lot about the intuitive aspects of the iPad. Your daughter did that was a really cool video from it. It was great to add to the presentation. But gesture-based is a whole new metaphor for people to do development. Where do you see that state of the industry? Where do you see that evolve? I mean, you see it at a immature state, evolving. Where we
No, I think it's really immature. I think we're just still at the point of like trying to do, it's kind of like, we're still at the point of trying to do everything that we used to do with a mouse and keyboard and just trying to make sure we can do the same things. And there's been a tiny bit of innovation around like, okay, what can we do that's new? How can we do it a different way? Like there's there's the Smool, music app where you like blow into the microphone and like you play a flute by pressing buttons on the iPad. It's like they're just designing a completely new kind of thing that you couldn't do some other way. Or games that you play where you hold the the iPad out. There's like a driving game I have where you hold the iPad in front of you and you steer with it. And they're just doing things that you couldn't really necessarily do other ways. And I think we're just at the beginning. I'm really looking forward to seeing what GarageBand and iMovie are like. I think those are going to be a taste into trying to design something for specifically for the iPad, but I think we're just starting to see it, just barely. I think it's kind of like the internet. The first version of the internet models we saw were taking offline businesses and just putting them online. And they just instantly got more efficient and got faster. There's some benefits to doing that. But then now I feel like with social and other innovations, we're seeing, okay, now that we've got everything connected, what can we actually do that we couldn't do before that's different, that was never possible before because these things are together? And I think we're going to see the same thing here, and I think it's going to take years. It'll be mature 10 years from now.
I've got an iPad and I love it, but we're so hooked into things like Excel. There's plenty of them that you can take from Microsoft Office products and read them. But do you know of anything upcoming that I can really create easily, Excel spreadsheets and stuff? But if I do it now, it's just such a pain.
Yeah. I don't know anything. I've used the Mac version is called Numbers, and they have, and I think they have a little bit easier one to use. And I've used that on here to do some spreadsheet stuff, and I still run into things where either I just don't know how to do it efficiently, or there's no way to do it efficiently. Where I'm like, oh, I want to select like all these cells, right? And it's like, I'm like doing something with my fingers, and I'm holding it down, and waiting for it to scroll through 60,000 rows, and it's like, all right, either there probably is a better way to do this. I don't know how to do it. At that point, I was like, all right, I really wish I had a computer. This is
applications, how do they run in the iPad?
Which ones?
The Google applications.
That's a great question. So I'm a big Mac fan. I'm also a big Google fan. So all my emails hosted at Google, my calendars are hosted there. A lot of other things. And there's like half the things work really, really well, and half the things work terribly. So like my calendar, I found that the best way to have my calendar in sync all the time was to actually not use the Mac Mobile Me calendar, but use Google Calendar, which is connected to my email accounts and other things. But the Mac Calendar client connects nicely to the Google Calendar server, basically through the Exchange protocol. And so you can take your Google account and set it up as an Exchange account on your iPad, and it works great. It does all the things you'd want it to do. You don't have to sync or think about it. It's just automatically there. You can put something on your calendar here, and it instantly shows up somewhere else. So calendar works great. They do a pretty good job with contacts. They do a pretty good job. Obviously, mail works seamlessly and works really, really well. But then I find Google Docs, which I use a lot of, because has been really lagging. It's been really behind. And so they just recently made some minor updates, but it's clunky. Like if you want to edit a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet on your iPad, it's just it's nothing like on the web where it feels like a real spreadsheet. It's like you click on a cell and the whole cell changes, and you see input boxes across the sign with an input box for each one, and you have to edit it, and then you have to save that row, and it's very clunky. And it seems like they should be able to make that a lot better. I think maybe there's some politics there, what they decide to do. Anybody else? Great. Well, I think probably end a little bit early. I think it's about 20 minutes for the next talk. If any of you guys want to hang around and ask questions after, feel free. And I'll also be here at the Data Summit at 2:30 where it starts.
I agree.